When I went to the therapist myself back when I had my son, she was harping in the past, and it did make you feel less than. So I automatically knew that, you know, people aren't going to feel open and comfortable unless they know that you see them the way they truly are. And I think I only got that because that really is a belief of mine. I think everyone has that potential and everyone is amazing. They just might have had those experiences that shifted a little, and we just have to get back to who you are.
Let's link up with Krista on The Fix. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
Hey, Fix listeners, welcome back to our latest episode of the Fix podcast. I'm your host, Krista Huber, and I have not only an incredible guest for today's episode, but she's also a former client of mine. And what I love about this conversation is, yes, we delve into some of the things that my client, Natalie, and I accomplished together inside of her time that she spent with me for over a year with the Fitness FYX program. But I also had the chance to highlight her career, her professional perspective, and what she does as a holistic life coach, as a counselor, and how a lot of the work that she does with her own clients connects back to fitness, connects back to nutrition. And you'll hear her say this. It's one of my favorite lines from the episode. I hadn't heard it before, but I just love the expression. And it's this idea of you have to feel it to reel it. AKA, if you want something for yourself, if you want to manifest something in your life, if you want to change something in your life, and of course, let's apply this to fitness and nutrition. If you want to change your physique, if you want to feel better in your skin, act like it's already happened. Yes, you have to show up and make the choices on a daily basis. Yes, you have to be consistent, but your mind is really powerful. And if you can tap into what that future version of yourself feels like, where you've already become the person that you want to be, where you've already seen that change in your physique, that is going to help you make it happen faster, because you know the outcome, like you literally feel that outcome in your body. And I just think it's a cute, fun way to say it. So that is my number one takeaway for this episode. And I'm looking forward to everybody's feedback on it and hearing what you guys have to say, and just so appreciate Natalie for being open about her own experience and what she learned. And in reflecting on the episode after we finished recording, she actually texted me and told me that she wanted to adjust an answer to her question at the very end. I had asked her what were some of the things that she learned in our time of working together and how she connected those things back to the work that she does with her clients, but how she shows up differently in her day-to-day as a mom of three, as a professional, as a partner, as a sister, all the things. And I didn't exclude the answer she originally gave because I thought it was great, but I want to add what she said to me. So I'm going to read it off to you guys here. And she said to me that one of the biggest things that she learned, and you'll hear she talks about the fact that she kind of confused a lot of her stress and her tiredness with hunger when she was actually lacking energy because she wasn't eating enough food. But she also realized that so much of the results that she was looking for in terms of having a better relationship with her food, but also reducing inflammation in her body, tapping into the strength that she already had inside of her, but then seeing that manifest in the gym, was that tracking food for her became a tool that encouraged her to be present and encouraged her to sit with those smaller moments in life, like sitting down at the table with her family and enjoying a meal, because she is a mom who loves to cook and is always in the kitchen and is making lots of different things for everybody else. But prior to working with me, would find herself in this situation where she had cooked everything, fed everybody, and was so exhausted by the time that she went to eat that she didn't really have an appetite. And that's something that's completely changed. And she looks at that labor of love in the kitchen as her time to also enjoy it for herself, for putting that work in. So taking the time to actually track, and therefore taking the time to really sit down and be more intentional with her meals, not just the food choices she's actually making, but being intentional with the entire experience, has allowed her to recognize that there's so much beauty in the pause, was exactly how she wrote it to me. And if we stay there and we stay present for those moments, that's where the magic happens. And I've done quite a few episodes this year, especially between January and February, that really hit on this, because it's something I have explored for myself, have made a commitment to being more present in my own life, and plan to continue to operate that way going forward, even when we get tested, when we're busy, when we're on from one thing to the next. And I just love that Natalie said that. So before I hand the microphone over to her, I want to give a quick shout out to one of our partners who makes episodes on The Fix possible. And that is our friends over at Legion Athletics. In case you haven't heard, they just dropped a brand new protein flavor. It's a peanut butter fudge. So for any of my peanut butter lovers out there, highly encourage you to go get your hands on it. If you have never purchased a product from Legion before, you can get 20% off of your first order with code Coach Krista at checkout. If you are a returning customer, you also get double the loyalty points anytime you use the code, which can be put toward future purchases. So again, Coach Krista, maybe mix that together with a little Fairlife chocolate milk and you get like a Reese's peanut butter cup kind of action. So go try it out. Check out their products. That's a new one I wanted to highlight for this week. And with that, without further ado, let's welcome Natalie to the Fix podcast. Natalie, welcome to the Fix podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Honored to be able to talk with a former Fitness FYX client, but not even just about your experience, but more about who you are, what you do, how you're helping people in your world, in your community, and just all your wisdom and knowledge, because I know if even one person listens to this today, they're going to benefit from it. And I'm just so lucky and grateful to have you in my world as both a friend and a client. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being here. And second, to kick things off, I like to do this with every guest that I have on the show. You know me and I know you. We're big coffee drinkers. So I gotta know, tell the Fix listeners, what's your go-to coffee order in the morning? What are you sipping on?
Go-to coffee is maybe yours. I like a Rook New Orleans.
Yes, that's
regular milk, no almond milk.
Nice.
That's how I do it.
I like it. Yeah. I'm more of an almond milk girl, I have to say, but sometimes at Rook, I'll change it up and do a little half and half. But that's about the extent of, me changing my order. And I like the seasonal drinks too. Like right now I'm big on the mint. Yeah. The mint mocha. That's one of my top.
Yum.
Yeah. Cool. Well, now that we got that out of the way, we're going to get into who you are and what you do, like I said, but I want to take this in a little bit of a different direction than you just kind of giving us like the highlight of your resume and your credentials, and really get to the heart of who you are. So think about it like this. If we were in an elevator and you had like 30 seconds to a minute to tell me about who you are, tell me on the deepest level that you can, like at your core, who is Natalie and why should we care about what you have to say?
Okay. So I am Natalie. I'm an identical twin, so don't mix me up if you see her. I am my own person, Natalie. And I'm a person who is very in tune with other people, and I like to help people when I'm in tune with them. I'm definitely more of a giver. I'm also a mom of 3, so I guess it came from there, or it was always in me, and I brought it out more. And I'm just a generous, giving person who likes to help people and likes connection, likes deep conversation, likes a good time, likes a vibe, likes some fun. Also, we might dance in that elevator. I'm a dancer.
Yes.
And just someone real, like someone who's going to keep it real with you and be genuine and try to be. And I do feel that when you present yourself as that, as open and genuine, you get the same thing back. So we're going to have fun in that elevator.
I can attest to that 100%, especially with what you said about energy. I think that's something that is truly like a gift that people are born with, and it's just intrinsic and innate to you. And we kind of joke about it when we're together, but there's totally a vibe, and you can just, when you have that sense to be able to read other people, especially with the type of work that you do. And I'd love to use this as a segue to get into that. I think that's a really important skill to have. And I imagine you being that way has also really influenced the way you work with your clients. So, why don't we start there? And why don't we talk a little bit about the type of work that you do, the type of support that you provide people, and feel free to weave in your backstory, like how you got here. I think it was important what you mentioned about being a giver and also being a mom, and how that's really kind of shaped where you are today.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Natalie Habbaz, also a therapist, life coach, counselor. My degree is in a master's degree in psychological counseling, but I call myself also a life coach because I like to go from the point of where are we going from here. I like to look forwards. And I noticed that even with my children, the same thing when I said I'm open is if you present yourself as open, they talk to me. I have teenagers who actually talk to me. And I think that helped me even with my practice and even start to even think to get into counseling is just be friendly and it kind of goes together. And that's when people start to talk. So I like to always foster and set that tone and feel you get it back.
Absolutely. The distinction about looking forwards, this is something that you and I have talked about, just one-on-one, and I definitely want to bring up in this conversation. So let's do it. So much of my own past experiences with therapy that honestly I didn't really feel like worked for me was focusing on the past and focusing on what happened. And that automatically kind of led me to this place of ruminating on certain things and feeling like I was just getting stuck in a bit of a feedback loop. So I'm curious, with the people that you work with, do they tell you that they've had that type of interaction with some sort of coach before? And then more specifically, how do you reshape that for them?
Right. So I'm going to be honest here because I said I'm an open, honest person.
Mm-hmm.
After I got my degree, I had my son, I was pregnant. And with my first son, I did have postpartum depression, as many women do. And I went to see a therapist, and she did the same thing, ruminating and talking about the past and what traumas. And it was too much. And every time I sat back in the chair, the same thing. And I realized that psychological and psychoanalytic process is kind of called CBT,
Mm-hmm.
cognitive behavioral therapy. They want to focus on the problems, and then we'll find that we'll see what to do. And I realized that when I start working with my clients, I don't want to focus on the problems. I want to focus on solutions.
Yeah.
Solution-based therapy. We're not going to really harp there. We're gonna know that that's maybe where the trauma is coming from. But what's the solution? What are we going to do about it? And I really think once the client sees that my mindset shifted to solutions, their mindset's going to shift, and they're also going to stop going back, because we all know you go back there yourself also.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of is like a feedback loop where you bounce off each other and pick up each other's openness and like progress of moving forward.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love for you to also, we can both speak to this together, because we talked about this parallel and your experience inside of working with me in the Fitness FYX. Like, that's an exact alignment, right? Like, you came to me yourself and saying, hey, I have tried lots of different things and I feel stuck. And I hear this all the time from women in saying that, like, oh, well, let me just try this thing that worked for me a couple of years ago when my life looked really different, when maybe you didn't have the same responsibilities, when your mental capacity was just totally different, right? Like, everything works until it doesn't work. And I see my role as a nutrition coach as helping you figure out, well, what's changed for you? And rather than saying like, oh, we need to like go back to the way it was before and then insert that tool, let's come up with a new variation of that tool or a completely different tool entirely, because there is something more appropriate for you. And,
right.
In terms of like nutrition, a lot of that from your experience was actually learning how to eat more food, right?
Yes. Now my favorite thing. Yeah. And that's the same thing. What can we do? we're doing something. We're not taking away. We're not saying diet, starve. We're saying eat more.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
we're looking
thinking about, yeah, go ahead.
I'm probably about to say what we were going to say, thinking about abundance. What are we going to
Yes.
do that's
Yes.
more?
Uh-huh.
More.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So let's elaborate on that from the lens of working with somebody through any kind of trauma that they've had or them wanting to make changes that they're approaching you with and what that looks like. How do you get them to operate from this place of abundance? What kind of questions are you asking them? What kind of exercises are you doing with them? What does that look like in your world?
Right. So first of all, I'm going to say, yeah, when I came to you, I was doing the craziest thing, mixing up hunger with tiredness, which I didn't know was a thing. So I thank you for that. And your approach showed me to eat more, and it showed me that eating more is actually self-care
Mm.
and abundance and all those good things. So with my clients, the first things I ask them are, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? What kind of exercise are you doing? And it's funny that your checklist says those same questions because you need that form of self-care to progress mentally and physically. And
Yeah.
it's all scientifically, hormonally connected.
And are you
So
finding that a lot of them are not in a good position with those things? Like, what's kind of the
yeah.
consensus there? What does it look like for the person when they first come to work with you versus where they are a few months in?
So a lot of times, kind of like your clients, like you said, they're stuck. You get on that hamster wheel and you're stuck, and the loop they're stuck on is, well, I don't want to move because I'm too, kind of like when I thought I was tired, but I was hungry. They think
Mm-hmm.
they're too tired to move, but they're really too down to move.
Sure.
And it shows you that once you start moving, literally the endorphins boost, serotonin, all the neurotransmitters, you're changing your cortisol balances out, you're changing your whole system where then you start to move and feel better. So I guess it's like you're not telling your clients go into CrossFit right away. Start with a walk. And I do the same exact thing. It's also the notion of when you unlock your body, you're unlocking your mind. We know it's all connected too. So like start with that movement, eat right. No one's feeling good on a fasting, doing while they're in those fasting modes. You need a, like, it's literally respecting yourself and then gaining those positive feelings.
Yeah. And let's tie it back to your experience with being postpartum. I appreciate you sharing that and talking through that because I know from working with so many moms and now starting to see friends enter that stage of life and hearing them talk about it, it can be a very lonely and isolating time. And I know for you, you mentioned you danced, you've grown up dancing, so it was always something that was a part of your life. But how did you feel when you were first in that state of making the transition of this new role, taking care of your child for the first time, maybe feeling a little bit isolated and lonely inside of that? Did you notice yourself like moving away from the things that you enjoyed or feeling really overwhelmed?
100% I did. Um, the only thing that helped was, thank God, I had a very supportive family, but also I never looked, I guess it's the part of looking forward thing.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was tough, and I'm like, oh, I can't dance. I have no energy. I mean, no one really in the newborn stage is jumping to do that either. But
No.
for the down feeling of not wanting to bothered me because, we're all goal oriented and we want to do all the things. But I was patient with myself, and that was important. But it definitely was tough. And thank God with the proper doctors and care, I got through it. But the biggest thing right now that I have three grown children, is I'm grateful for it because I actually saw a lot of those physical connections with the mental connections and learned a lot of it from there. Even though I felt down and anxious, I knew there's hormonal stuff going on. This will take time. My hormones
Mm-hmm.
need to settle and I'll settle.
Sure.
And for all those women in those circumstances, they have to know that these things apply too. Eat more, sleep whenever you can, walk if you can, get that sunshine, get those vitamins, get those neurotransmitters up. And it really taught me the mind body connection. So I'm thankful for that experience. I don't look at it as a trauma. I look at it as a point of growth.
Sure.
And so many of my clients that come to me that are postpartum and there's tons of all different types. There's depression, anxiety, postpartum OCD, a whole spectrum of it. And I actually like that. I could relate to them on a personal level and help them. And I'm sure when you see clients who use their personal experiences as well. And once they see the body mind connection, it also takes away that stigma. Like, there's not something mentally wrong with me. It's just hormones. I just need to level out and I will be okay.
Yeah,
And they will.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it's that shame piece, right? That like
Yeah.
you're like, why do I feel like this? Or also the stories we're telling ourselves of like, I shouldn't feel this way or I shouldn't be this way. For
Mm-hmm.
you, with kind of getting into that comparison trap, maybe initially with your first child, of saying, hey, like before this, I was doing all of the things and I never thought that something like this would be an experience that I would have. At any point, did you kind of feel like this? I think shame is really the best word, or like this inadequacy of being like, why can't I get back to where I was before?
Probably, but I'm also just a very self-aware person, and I knew everything is shifting physically also,
Sure.
and that's gonna take time. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have my dancer body that I had right before
Yeah.
getting pregnant at 26. Um, so I had an awareness of being patient, and I do attribute that to my mom, who is the most patient woman on earth, a speech therapist, the hardest job, I think,
Yeah.
and the most patient, enduring job. So thank God for that. And if my clients have such issues and don't have that, we work on that. And we work on it in the same thing, not by harping on all the trauma they're feeling with this, but what can we do to gain more patience? Maybe read a book, maybe take a nice slow walk, maybe listen to a beautiful podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All these things that are kind of moving meditations and learning in stillness, and that will grow that patience. It's kind of like get the mental patience to get the physical patience.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to this idea of being focused on the solution, right? And even, I wouldn't even say the solution, but also like the action steps that we need to take to get to the end goal that we want. Like, this is something that
Right.
you know from having lots of conversations with me. I'm really big on this. Like, and I feel like you, as a client, I've always said to you, like, having those clients that just get it, you
Thank you.
wanted to see the physique changes, but you also, as you mentioned, like your energy levels. I remember the first conversation we ever had, you had said to me, you're like, I feel like I'm like an Uber driver with my kids and all their activities from like
Yeah.
2 to 9 p.m. And then I'm exhausted in that time. And I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I'm not really sure what to focus on. And so what we started doing was like paying attention to, okay, let's take this certain step. One, like we said, eating more food. And then how does that influence your energy levels in that time? And as you start to feel better, that's going to get you closer to, in this example, the byproduct of losing some body fat, changing your physique. But that can't come without what we're doing in between.
Mhm. For sure. And I remember after maybe 1 or 2 weeks of eating more, I was like, I feel like a total different person. Like, it was amazing. And it's from this place of abundance and taking care of yourself and knowing that more is better. We can't go back to the 80s and the old school way of starving and, you know, doing heated hit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, we're strength training, we're building muscle, we're eating more, we're gaining muscle. And yeah, we could lose the fat, but you get it.
Yeah, 100%. Now, obviously, we're talking about some examples with like specific to postpartum and specific to moms, but what other sorts of things are you talking through with your clients? Is it relationships, life transitions? What other sort of challenges are coming up for people?
Yeah, so I deal mostly with women. We speak about a lot of mood disorders, which are anxiety, depression, traumas, relationship issues. As a mom, some of them talk about their children issues. I don't work with children, but I would help moms who have children with diagnoses, help them. And I think that's the support that I mentioned. That's
Mm,
truly important. And and the most important thing is when I start my sessions with my clients, what you said before about that block, that thing that was like getting in my way of the Fitness FYX progress. I start with that in the mental approach and I tell them all, you're all perfect, you're all complete. It doesn't matter anything that happened. You are perfect the way you are. there might be a certain thing that sometimes blocks you to getting to your goal, but we're going to get rid of that and you are just fine as you are. And I think just setting that tone takes away some of the pressure and the goals and the negativity and the going back there. And it's kind of the fitness fix for your mind, because I'm telling them, you're great. We're getting rid of that block and we're going to do things to build that strength. And instead of building the physical strength, I'm building the mental. Mm-hmm. Although I do encourage every single one of my clients to do some form of movement and eating well.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit further on this piece around seeing yourself as perfect, because this was something, again, you and I have talked about before one-on-one. And I do think that's really interesting in terms of the approach. How did you arrive at that, as like using that as the anchor point to set the stage to start developing someone's mindset shift so that they can continue to have that support, but also support themselves and the stories that they're telling themselves too?
So I think, like I said, when I went to the therapist myself back when I had my son, she was harping in the past, and it did make you feel less than. So I automatically knew that, people aren't going to feel open and comfortable unless they know that you see them the way they truly are. And I think I only got that because that really is a belief of mine. I think everyone has that potential and everyone is amazing. They just might have had those experiences that shifted a little, and we just have to get back to who you are, to that authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a lot of us like let those experiences, like we said, the different events, the trauma, the mood disorders, whatever it is, like I unfortunately see like a lot of people like identifying with that so much that it's like, instead of saying that they're a person who is experiencing depression, it's like they associate their entire self with that depressed state. And I find that that's a really hard place to try to move forward, like we're saying.
That's true, yeah. So it's better to just set that tone in the positive. Yes, you do know, and you have to be realistic with everyone, what's happening, and if there's serious diagnoses, but it's the same thing as looking forward. And we're going to see, well, you still are amazing. We just have to figure out where that's coming from, what has to shift for that. If it's medication, it's medication. But the building blocks are really diet, movement, and rest.
Mm-hmm. And that view of self-care, right? As seeing diet, movement, and rest as a point of self-care for yourself and really prioritizing yourself. I think what you mentioned about working with moms who may have a child that is going through a certain diagnosis, and then her not feeling like she has somebody to lean on through that. And maybe some of the pressures around being like, I need to be strong, I need to be everything to everyone. As a mom yourself, and as something that that you and I talk about a lot with fitness and nutrition too, because that's usually a reason that a lot of moms feel like they don't have time for the gym, or they're being really reactive with their food choices. Where do you think that's all come from? Is that like societal messaging? Are we just wired that way? Like, for me, this is like the deep work that I want to try to figure out so that we can change that narrative, so that this idea of self-care isn't seen as being selfish either.
I think it comes from the expectation of perfection. Mm-hmm. I do counseling, one-on-one verbal counseling, but I also, for those clients who say, I don't like a gym, I don't like going to the gym because I don't feel comfortable, or they literally don't have the motivation to because of the mindset. I'm an A certified trainer also, and I'm a dancer for 35 years. So I do a restorative movement to kind of get rid of, I kind of feel like once their body gets flexible, then their mind does, and then they start talking. And I had a client today and doing the movement with me, and she started saying how she wants to lose weight, and she's putting that she has a goal and the number's not, I'm sure this is what you hear all the time. The number is what it's supposed to be, all the things. And I realized that that's where this mom pressure is from, our own expectations of perfection. And I said, you don't look at the number, you don't look at the goal, just focus on right now, feeling better, feeling stronger, and
setting yourself in the right energy. I do a lot of like yin and yoga type moves to like really restore themselves. And then you've seen it, then it will all fall into place. So
Yeah.
it's our own it's our own threshold and of perfection that we're reaching towards. And we have to just be more realistic and a little more vulnerable in general.
Yeah. And I love, again, tying that piece of perfection back into it, because it's like you just said, we've already established at the beginning of working with you that the perfection is exactly how you are right now. Like you're already there. It doesn't need to be accomplishing certain things, achieving certain external factors. It's like
or something. No.
right, exactly. And so to then kind of say, hey, like it's the perception that this perfection is like this ideal that we're kind of holding on a pedestal that we can't achieve is a big part of the problem. I think that's so important to acknowledge. And then two, I love what you mentioned about the movement piece and seeing how people can open up, but the tie into saying like, don't you want to feel better? And I would imagine if we take this client as an example, right? Having had her go through the exercise of moving her body and then positioning to her like, hey, isn't this about you feeling good? And isn't this about you feeling better? She had the environment and like that literal feeling like going on physically for her to be able to really connect with what you're saying and understand why that's important and to be open to receiving you saying that and knowing what you mean.
Yeah, definitely. I end each of those sessions with how do you feel now versus how when you came in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always positive. And they do have to just it's the same exactly what you said. Use that same approach even in the physically. You're perfect the way you are. There's some barriers. Go to Krista, especially if you want to get rid of them. But my movement and mental connection approach works too. And it's all the same thing. Mm-hmm.
And are you encouraging, we can't let this conversation go by without touching on the point of habits, because obviously all of this comes back to consistency, right? Like you can't just eat a couple of really solid protein based meals 3 times and expect to see results. And when it comes to your mental state and making that mind body connection, that's not going to happen with just one session with you. So let's take the example of some of the movement practices or any of the other things you're encouraging your clients to do. How are you getting them to integrate those approaches on a day-to-day basis?
So obviously they have talk sessions with me. I also encourage, you can't be isolated. Have your girlfriends, have your girls' nights, have whatever your thing is, poker. I don't care what you do with your friends, but socialize. Because once you're isolated with those feelings, that's where it gets dangerous. Even if it's a spouse, have a date night, some form of socializing. And then for eating well, sleeping well, exercising, like I said, if they're not motivated to do the exercise on their own, I say, you know what, instead of a counseling session today, we're moving. And I really see that. I say, unlock your body for your mind. After that session, they'll talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also like, just like I said in the elevator, I'm going to kind of see where she's at and see what she needs for the day. And eating well, I have one client who has a hard time just eating. Sometimes when you're down, you literally don't want to eat.
Yeah.
We all know those breakup moments where you're having ice cream or you're starving. And, you know, I really tell them, I do the Krista. I say, you have to send me a log of the week of what you eat.
Love
So
it.
I learned a lot of my self-care from the Fitness Fix, from learning how important food is for your mood. I was mixing up tiredness from hunger, and tiredness kind of is a mood. Like when I was tired, I was not dancing and thriving. I felt like something was off. So, I do those types of check-ins. And the main answer to your question is with the consistency, sorry,
No, you're
edit
good. You're good.
consistency is do it enough where you get that buzz and you get that good feeling where it becomes a routine. And like your girl who you taught to screw it and walk into the main gym, not hide, and use those weights and those cables and those squat racks and crush it, you get that high feeling and those endorphins and it becomes your routine. So I want them to literally feel it to reel it. And that's what's happening.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Feel it to reel it. That's good. That's a good catchphrase. It's really cool to see how you've integrated your personal experiences with me and then layering it into your work. not even just for yourself, but then to take it that step further and know that it's impacting more people, but also just reminding everybody how holistic this is, right? Like we're talking about really getting to the heart of operating from this place of abundance, but and this mind muscle connection, the physical with the mental, but also seeing that like we can't really have one without the other, because at the end of the day, yes, I could go give somebody some macros and give them some suggestions on swaps they can make with their food choices, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot if you're not actually going to go ahead and do it, right?
And even more of the connection, they're not going to eat the right macros if they're down,
right?
And they're having those feelings and they just can't, like that client who literally couldn't eat. So everything has to work together, and it's really scientific. It's really the neurotransmitters. You know that cortisol is a major player, especially with women, and everything has to level out to work together. It's straight up science. Holistic approach is really mind, body, and soul, but it's me and you together.
Totally. And, you know, speaking of cortisol and knowing that we're talking about consistency and being in this for the long haul, I'm curious, between what you see on social media, TikTok, Instagram, all that kind of stuff, or even like conversations we've had about what your kids see on YouTube. Like sometimes it's for the good and sometimes it's the trends and the very like fad sorts of things. And something that I've been seeing so much recently that I don't know if you have, but we should talk about it, is like all those things like happy juice and cortisol face. Have you seen this? I'll explain it to you.
I know the first thing though.
So it's basically like, I don't even know what's in it, but it's like this juice that people are claiming can help you feel less stressed and help rebalance your cortisol.
Maybe it's like adaptogens, which some people could say could have an effect.
Sure,
but
it can help.
All things are a band-aid. You know, with other fitness things, they're a band-aid. And with cortisol, it is estrogen related. So I will say that with certain women and some hormonal points, that's going to kick in. And that is a real thing. And it's also stress and trauma related. So I would say get to those root causes. Let's focus on the root causes, not the band-aid with the stupid juice. Right?
Yeah, it's like,
and that's a holistic approach too. We're getting to the root cause.
Yeah. And really understanding that, hey, if there's something about you checking the box of having some sort of juice, or even like another example is there was a moment a couple months ago where everyone was like trying to make those like sleep cocktails that are basically just like, it's magnesium and like tart cherry juice, and you can mix it with water. There's nothing wrong with that, but we want people to understand that's not a cure-all, right? Like if there's something about that kind of like helps you get into your nighttime routine and you can sort of romanticize those 30 minutes or whatever, and having some sort of drink is a part of that for you. Okay. But the intent is different. It's not like saying, hey, if I drink this thing, then I'm automatically going to have the best night's sleep. We got to look at these factors behind it too.
For sure. And magnesium does have scientific reasons to why it works.
I take it.
I throw it in the spray in baths is great for muscles, for my muscle mamas out there. But I think if that were my client, it's also, I take melatonin sometimes to sleep a little deeper for muscle recovery. But there's a difference also if they're having real sleep issues. And with that, it's throwback to what's the root cause. We need to get your nervous system so regulated that you're sleeping like a baby without even any of the other stuff. So yeah, it's all really just checking in with yourself and getting a better intuitive read on yourself. And if you can't have that, come to someone like me and Krista.
Yeah. And, you know, you just mentioned like getting that intuitive read on yourself and then eventually being able to take that to new places and kind of, as I like to say, like graduate to new levels, right? So I'd love for you to talk through this personally. You went from a place where I was having you track your food and that sort of thing to now eating a lot more intuitively. And I'm sure if you had asked that, if I had asked you this question like over a year ago, you'd be like, well, if I eat intuitively, I'm probably not going to get the results that I'm looking for. Whereas now I would
Diet
argue,
Coke and ice cream.
yeah,
No.
right? Like if you ask me what I want to eat, yeah, I'm going to say ice cream. Like who wouldn't, right? But now you trust yourself because you have established that structure and that routine. So, what has that looked like for you? Like, what has that evolution been like for you now? Fast forward a whole nother year later.
So, first of all, nothing wrong with ice cream. No hate on ice cream, but
We love ice cream.
That's not, we want our protein. We're going there.
Yes.
So yeah, I came to you and I started macros in the app and to a T because I really didn't know how to eat. I felt like a toddler and Krista was teaching me how to eat. And what shifted, I was always a super active physical dancer, doing all the things. Krista got me more into weights. Thank you. Heavier weights, I'll say. And you actually taught me that some weights can be cardio. Never knew. Now I knew. And eventually what shifted was I wasn't eating because I wanted that taste of that Diet Coke, even though McDonald's Diet Coke slaps, just saying yes.
It's elite. Yep. There's a ranking. There's a hierarchy.
Yeah. It was, I needed the fuel. My workouts were so, like, I don't wear those fitness watches. To me, it's like the same thing, perfection. I don't need to see that goal. I feel it. And what I felt was, wow, I need more food because that workout was amazing. At the gym, the smoothie guy would be like, 2 scoops of protein today, right? Like he just knew by seeing the sweat and the glow and the maybe grossness, but whatever. But I learned to eat by what I needed to do those activities. And it brought me back to when I was a teenager, dancing at Broadway Dance Center, competitively swimming, playing all the sports, doing all the things. And I was fueling. And I'm like, wait, I think the gas tank was broken. I forgot how to fuel. And I think your approach also helped me realize that my physical strength is connected to my mental strength and my spiritual strength and all the strengths. And, it goes with just knowing yourself. And it made me just feel better in all the ways. So thank you, Krista.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I will also give you a shout out too. You're a great cook and you like to cook. And for anybody who says that they don't have time to do it, come talk to Natalie because she is a busy mom and she was always sending me pictures of like all the things going on your stove and bulk meal prepping so that you had things handy and ready to go. And I think getting to a place of seeing that, like, again, we'll go back to that word of abundance. You're going to trust yourself when you learn how to eat more food, because then when you are in the environments where we have the Diet Cokes and the ice creams of the world, you have the confidence to know how much of that you can comfortably fit in based on how you want to feel, not just how you want to look, but what you know is going to make you feel good both in that moment and the next day after that, right? And when the bulk of your behavior, if your behavior most of the time, 90% of the time, looks like lots of protein and all those whole food sources, we can have the confidence in knowing that, hey, there's plenty of room for the ice cream and those sorts of things too. Because even that, fuels those workouts to some degree. And I also want to mention too, there is that the feeling good piece really gets reinforced with the movement. Like to watch your confidence go from being like, hey, I'm hesitant to go into the gym by myself. Like we went from you always coming to taking my classes and we were pushing it with weight. And then we trickled into like just kind of using free weights and staying in the corner. Right. And now I get texts from you being like, I just crushed the leg press. And I'll have clients say to me like, oh yeah, I was on the leg press. And then some guy came over and he was like, did you push that? And you're like, hell yeah, I did. And seeing that progression and seeing that evolution is just really gratifying for sure. And I imagine it feels the same way for you too.
It definitely does. And I think when you said I cook those meals, I always cook those meals, but put all my heart and soul in it for my kids and for my husband, for my family. And by the time I was done doing it, I was so exhausted that I'm like, I had a little bit. I didn't put that same focus on me. And Krista taught me, yeah, you have that whole meal and eat the way your kids eat. I would give my kids protein, fiber, vegetables, fruit, every meal.
Yeah.
Since they're babies. My kid was eating veal and strawberries at 1 year old, like babies.
Love it.
And why wasn't I taking care of myself like that? And you taught me that. And I kind of shift that mindset with my clients, the busy women, the busy moms, that everyone around you doesn't need all your, you could be friendly and social and amazing with everyone around you, but you're not feeling that yourself. Give yourself that love, give yourself that abundance. Take care of yourself first. As
Right.
cliche as it is, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. And it's such a great illustration and reminder of the fact that, like, if you're doing this for everyone else around you, you have the capabilities to do it for yourself. It's
Yeah.
just shifting the mindset back to that and remembering that if you're striving to be the best parent, the best career woman, the best sister, daughter, whatever, that starts with how you think about yourself and how you take care of yourself.
Right. From the place of abundance, you're walking into that room first. Step in your power first, then worry about everyone else.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I
Get to
love
that
that.
gym first.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
if every female could make that kind of like her mode, that's how she's operating, I think there'd be a lot less of the pressure that we were talking about at the beginning of this, that we're putting on ourselves to try to be this certain thing all the time to everyone else.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Nat, I want to be respectful of your time. And this has been such a fun conversation. So before I let you go, we're going to do a little fun lightning round to close out the episode with some quick questions. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. What is your number one favorite exercise to do at the gym?
You said it. I'm kind of a legs girl as a dancer. I like a leg press. I do. Squat rack, you're getting me there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're working our way up. But I mean, hello, you've like doubled the weight that you're using on leg press, which is awesome. So that's exciting. Yeah. Least favorite exercise. What are we avoiding if we can? Do you have a least favorite?
No. Holistic girl. No, I don't have a least favorite.
We're too open minded for that here. Good answer.
Yeah, I'm a very flexible person.
Yeah. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pizza.
Oh, pizza. Okay. Your new Does it have to be from Brooklyn, like your New York pizza specifically?
Bologna's is the best, but I'm gonna go pizza.
Okay.
Just general. Vicks is fine.
Okay. What is the last book that you read?
The last book I read. I like cheesy books.
That's allowed.
Old. The last one I read, I read a long time ago, and I reread it. I like The Help.
Nice. Hey,
Girls book.
that's a good way to decompress, right? Just with everything we've been talking about.
The therapist and everything is reading like a mindset book. No, I like just fluff.
Yeah, that's important. Super important.
Mm.
What is thinking about, like, whether this is fitness related or food related, what was like your biggest misconception outside of what you mentioned around, hey, I was like confusing my hunger and tiredness? What was your biggest misconception you had prior to changing your relationship and approach to food through working with me versus where you are now?
Um, I never knew more could like I did a reverse diet with you too. I don't think we mentioned that.
Yeah, we didn't.
And I
It gets to the heart of the whole, like,
yeah,
eating more
abundance.
food. Yeah.
Yes, reverse diet was amazing. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s where I did, it was all waist models and ridiculous stuff where I never knew that's the foundation to build the muscle. And that made me feel so much better and have the energy. And to me, that was like the major thing of it all. I loved it. And it did spearhead with my clients to focus more on doing more and not looking back. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Kind of said that. I learned a lot from you.
Good. Thank you. And just to kind of bring everything together, we obviously touched repeatedly on this message of abundance and consistency and being outcome and solutions oriented. But if there's just one thing that you'd want somebody listening to this episode or somebody having the chance to work with somebody like yourself to take away from it, what's that like lasting message that you'd want to leave with them?
I think the major message is the way I started it and you tied it too, even though I never thought of it from the physical sense, even though with my client, yeah, it did come up. You're all perfect physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. Sometimes there's a block. And when you have that, come to a professional. And it's not that you can't discover it yourself. It's just always easier for someone else to see it. And you're all amazing. That's it.
So well said. I love it. Well, you're amazing too, Natalie. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And for anybody who wants to connect with you, we'll make sure that we put all your contact info and all that stuff down in the show notes so that if anyone wants to reach out and talk to you about what they might be experiencing and seeing if you guys are a fit to work together, we will make that happen. So thank you again. You're welcome. Of course. And for everybody who tuned in today, we appreciate you so much for being here. If any of this message resonated with you, or maybe you know somebody in your life that you want to be able to support them and you want that outside support to come into the mix, but you're not sure how to start that conversation, send them this podcast. It's such a great way to do it and open up that door for a little bit more vulnerability and invite them into doing that so that everybody can continue to work towards feeling and being their absolute best as we all strive to every day. So from wherever you were listening today, we appreciate you for being here and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.